And for birth to work, the body has to open. It's not like you're going to squeeze a baby out someplace that it wasn't meant to come out. Mother's body's made to do this. I mean, we wouldn't even exist if this process had been working for generation after generation to the nth power, okay? And think about it, we're mammals. There's about 5,000 kinds of us mammals. And yet, supposedly, we're the only kind that was created to not be able to do it? I mean, that just doesn't even make sense, does it? How many of you were born on a farm? Nobody. Whatever happened to the farm? There she's one. That's happened in my lifetime. I come from farm people, not that I grew up on one, but I knew that that's what I was missing. And I also knew that people that grew up on a family farm were wiser than people that grew up in town because you knew more of nature. Because you knew cows could give birth, pigs could give birth, cats could give birth, dogs of all kinds except maybe bulldogs, not so good. Bulldogs didn't happen without human interference. Do you realize that? It took a lot of human interference to get something with a colossal head and skinny hindquarters. And so my aunt, who raised dogs, I got there one summer when I was 9, and she has this bulldog with 12 puppies in her kitchen. And I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Well, bulldogs aren't so good at giving birth. You might have to help them. So this is our little kind of maternity ward here." And so, being 9 years old, I went to pick up the dog, and she said, one of the puppies, "Don't touch that puppy!" And she never raised her voice to me before that. I said, "What?" And she said, "If you so much as touch that puppy, she might abandon the whole litter." And I went, "Whoa." She said, "If you get your smell on one of those puppies, this is her first litter, she can't mother. I can't take that chance." And I thought, wow, I had no idea smell had so much to do with it. Or so that was my introduction to the sensitive period after birth. Okay, so what happens when you're afraid of birth? Your body gives off a hormone. What's the name of that hormone? It makes it's the fight-flight. Catecholamines, adrenaline. Okay, and that is nature's mechanism for stopping labor. Because back in the evolutionary period, right, mammals could start to give birth. They're very vulnerable because there's nothing more delicious than a newborn, right? A newborn, anything is yummy to whatever predator's around. And so the female has to be able to start to give birth. She's got to be in a safe place, but if suddenly a predator comes by and she smells, she's got to be able to reverse the birth process and get out of there or fight. And you know what? We're the same way. We just don't know that hospitals affect us that way. But they do, because hospitals are where you go when you're injured or sick or dying. And we all have these associations with hospitals. It's not home. It's not home. No matter home like they make it. Right? So you don't want the stress hormones. You don't want the fight and flight reaction when you're in labor. You want the opposite. Do you know what the calm hormone is called that our body dumps when you're feeling happy, when you're feeling euphoric, when you're in love? Oxytocin. Did you know your body makes oxytocin? And maybe some of you moms know that your body's making oxytocin when your baby's sucking at your breast. And oxytocin is feel good. It's calm, right? You feel calm when you've got the breastfeeding problems all sorted out, and then you just have that pleasurable feeling like, oh, you just love everybody. Even obnoxious people are lovable. Right? Because that's what oxytocin does. That's the love hormone. It's called the love and trust hormone. It's the opposite of oxytocin, catecholamine or adrenaline. And then it also comes along with endorphins. And endorphins actually numb or erase pain. And that's the one you get with the runner's high. It's also, attached very closely with oxytocin. So, now if you're afraid, and you don't want to be afraid anymore, what do? What works? So nice and loud. Take a deep breath. Take a very, very deep breath. Now what do we mean by a deep breath? And then stick your belly out. And hold it for a few seconds. And then let it out really slowly. You can slow your pulse by doing that. So, when something's driving you crazy, instead of screaming back, take a deep breath. This is like, road rage coming on. Take a deep breath. Instead of blowing off steam, it's much better to calm things down. And you'll be smarter if you do that, right? So, you have little kids, you're going to get steamed up sometimes. Just remember those deep breaths before you fly off the handle. Okay, what else? What else takes away fear? And I also think singing, especially if the person's a singer, you can't stand to hear a bad note, and making that note, whatever it is going to make you feel better. And you can't be afraid, for instance, and grateful at the same time, right? So if you went into prayer, or if you went into a thank you place, you're already not afraid. It only took, a fraction of a second to change from fear to gratitude. Well, that's pretty easy. Oh, okay, well, how about humor? Can you think something's funny and be afraid at the same time? Not really. You can be terrified, and then you can laugh, and then you're not terrified anymore. Okay? Now, maybe you can't come along with a full-blown laugh. Well, try smiling. If you're terrified, then smile, and then see how you feel. You're going to feel better. You might feel like it's forced, but then you'll think maybe you'll think that's funny. See what I mean? The mind is so mobile. The emotions, listen to the word, emotion, right? So, a thought of absolute terror can be dispelled in less than a second. And that is true. Yes? Thank you. Having a doula is a great thing to do. And why is a doula such a good thing? Because people who are scared of birth do not want to be doulas. Am I right? Do you ever know anybody who's terrified of birth who wanted to be a doula? No. So it attracts people who want to bring that calmness to birth. Now, if you ever hear that I'm wrong and you have an exception to that, I'm always willing to listen because I try to be open-minded. But I just don't think that doula profession attracts people who are afraid of birth. Thank you for prompting me there. If I think people are too serious at birth, I'm going to try to make some jokes. Now, let's hear if any of you ever had a moment of fun and humor in labor. I want to hear from you a little bit. kind of be thinking about that. Did anything funny ever happen? Does anything funny ever happen at birth? Like the water breaking in some dramatic way? Or, okay, come on up. And I think we want you on the mic. Okay, let's hear your fun story.
So this talk speaks to the fun story of birth, but also to how when you're in transition, you get into labor land and you're going to, you kind of say irrational things and you don't know what's going on. So this was me in transition. My midwife said, "Let me check you, you'll feel better because you're getting really close, so I think you'll feel better." I said, no. She said, well, let's give it a try. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And she goes, oh, you're 9. And in all seriousness, I said, I thought you were going to say 11. I thought you were going to say 11. She said I was 9. And I said, I thought you were going to say 11. And I meant it. I was like, I'm far away. I'm not 11 yet. Everybody in the room laughed. I laughed. And it lightened it up. 2 minutes I was pushing.
Perfect. It's a good one. One of the reasons that I'm going to mention a big fear that women have nowadays. It's called fear of poop. There are women who are having surgery, I'm kidding, because they're afraid of poop. Okay, I see a hand up. Come on. And I have some real concrete, funny word, but stories to talk about that one. We'll go ahead. Fear of poop.
I actually had a funny birth where the couple, we kept waiting for her to start feeling some high blood pressure. And as time went on...
Please, could you speak right into the mic?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Anyway, in the labor she was having, we were waiting for her to have some rectal pressure. And so periodically we'd say, are you feeling any rectal pressure? No. And time went on, we'd ask her, feeling any pressure yet? No. And at one point her husband said, I have to go to the bathroom. And the wife, he said, the husband said, I have to go to the bathroom.
He said he had to.
He said, I have to go to the bathroom. And she grabbed him and said, don't leave. And he said, I have rectal pressure.
I'm going to keep that one. Because that one does several things at once. A lot of you doulas, right, will know that you feel in your body what mom feels. And if you got a full bowel, okay, go empty it while you have a chance, but, or you might put your pants on your and you hanging on isn't helping her, but oh well, what are you going to do? Okay, and rectal pressure is just an exceedingly polite way to say that. It's always good to be able to slip into polite mode, but then there's direct speech too. So actually, when a woman is having a baby, and a lot of people aren't told this in their childbirth education, it feels like the most colossal poop that we were ever going to have. Impossible. Colossal and impossible. And most compelling, right? And a lot of women cannot be told that this is the baby, because it just feels too much like that familiar sensation, only quite impossible. And we go, well, actually, you're very well made for this, and don't you worry, it's going to work, okay? But now that the word's out that you might poop in labor, some people, like I say, are choosing C-section. Now, if you Google an article that was written a couple years ago by an LA writer, and it was like, how I learned to enjoy pooping in labor. So if you just put that in as a search term, you're going to have a good read. And I would suggest just sending that all over the place, because she had a real deep fear and then it's just about how she got over it. And it'll make you laugh a lot, which is, it'll make you happy, and less afraid, okay? And I think doulas should go online and go to, these guys should pay me a commission, it's called brownfido.com. It's a website where you can buy fake food. It's advertised as an American-made product, so it's patriotic to buy it. And you can get a little small or a medium or a big pile. And you're supposed to take the big one, looks like St. Bernard or Newfoundland or something, and you put it just inside your glass doorway so any potential burglar would go, I think I'm going next door. But it's very realistic looking, and it makes conversation, and it brings up the subject. So, you know, it's a good sign when you see food, because it means progress, and so that's why it's such a good sign. But this is all about to do with the conditioning, you know, the cultural conditioning that we have here in the United States. If you're German, or you're from Austria, your regular toilet is made so that it will capture food on a platform for proper inspection. Because Germans and Austrians really like to have a look, admire, or analyze. There we go. That's analysieren. We must analyze it because it's the key to your, you know, satisfaction for the day. And how many of you have a child who, after he or she poops in the morning, does not want to flush it? Am I right? You know, they have a certain attachment and you know, feelings of endearment and, yeah, pet names sometimes. I mean, you can't just whisk it away and take away that additional pleasure, right? And so I think it's good to honor all that, because that means in the next generation they're not so uptight about just a good functioning booty. It's a kind of health, right? So we shouldn't be disgusted by a good functioning of the body. Okay? So, enough about that for a few minutes. Well, it's a children's book. It goes, the little mole who went in search of whodunit. And it's a translation from the German. And the literal German translation is about the little mole wanting to know who pooped on his head. And it's a great children's book, but it's also a very good story of suspense, revenge, and it's also scientific method. So I recommend it, and you can get it in any language. It was originally written in German, and it's even got a cartoon with it. So there are other cultures that deal with this subject a little bit better than we do in the U.S., but there's always hope for us. Okay, so more about how to dispel fear. There's the deep breathing, there's the comedy, and of course anything funny has to be humorous to the mother, if she's the one that matters. If it makes the father to be laugh and she doesn't think it's funny, then you're not on the right track. It's got to be her who laughs. And women in labor can only be made to laugh if they're real super serious. It's got to be weird. Weird. It's not intellectual humor. It's got to be something gross. Weird. And you kind of have to know them a little bit. What will do it. You don't dare get it wrong. If you make try a humor and it falls flat, you'll make them angry or irritated, and now you're behind where you want to be. So, you know, she's got to be a good friend. That's my competitor over here. Okay, so what else works? Smile. Even if you could only, sometimes I'm seeing a woman crowning. She's about to have that baby, and she's just real serious, and I just want even one little upturned corner in her mouth will help her not tear. So I might ask for a smile, even if it's just a half one. And if you're ever doing anything really hard and you think you can't do it, try smiling. it gets easier. And it actually helps you find that instant hormonal change where you get out of a serious frame of mind and then get lighter-hearted. So having that kind of control to where you can change your mood intentionally is really important, especially when you're going to be a parent. Okay, because parents really got to be able to do that, otherwise your kids are going to rule you. And that is really hard, if the kids are ruling you. Whatever. You don't want a 2-year-old running the house, really, do you? I know people where the cat runs the house. Now that's wrong. That just shouldn't be permitted to happen. No, you got to push back enough that you stay in charge because you're the one that's paying the bills. Okay, so what else works? Well, that works really well. And, you know, let me demonstrate. Everybody has a perineum. Everybody sitting in this room, male or female, has a perineum, right? Make it tight. Just, you know, tighten, 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 tighten. Feel that? Now go. Is anybody able to do it at the same time? Stay tight here. Okay, so I've just proved to you that this one's connected to this one. Very important to remember. You know, and when you're having a baby, you want the looseness to be here. So that's why it helps to, gravity helps. Did anybody ever try to put wine on their back? With people hollering at you? Not optimal conditions. So that's another reason why we need to have people disobeying whenever possible the instructions that you got to lie down and be tied down. And you know, Rochester, I've seen Rochester get all, you know, activist in the 80s about we want to be able to breastfeed in public. That's my memory of Rochester work. Well, get over how weird you think it is to see a woman actually breastfeeding her child. Would you be screaming at the Madonna and baby Jesus if they were breastfeeding? I don't think so. If you knew that's who they were, but what if you didn't know that's who they were and that's what they were doing? Because that's actually what they did. I think we can just accept as an article of faith that baby Jesus was breastfeeding. So if not he, why not the rest of us? Okay, and then, you know, I mean, you can translate to all religions, okay, I can do that one's breastfeeding. Every chance in the world of it. Because almost everybody does. Okay, so now what's so special about the 20th century, the 21st century? Well, if you never see something, and then you suddenly see it for the first time when you're 15, it might shock you. I mean, I actually have women in my community that never knew that milk came out of here until they were 15. She was 15, really, really smart, and she said she saw it in a magazine that had an ad for Playtex nursing equipment, and the little rubber nipple, plastic nipple, whatever it was, it said, most like mother herself. And she was, that's how protected and ignorant people could be. Now, I think that's gone now because of all the stuff on the internet and the big arguments about our women who want to nurse, oh my God, that go out of their house with a baby and then, you know, nurse at a restaurant or a park, you know, a health club or something, and then people are telling them to go to the toilet. There's so much controversy about that we know actually about breastfeeding. So that's one way to look at it. And even these fights we're having about it are evidence of some progress, because at least people know what breasts are, you know, at least partly for But do people know how much cultural stuff there is in that? I've got a friend who was staying on a kibbutz for a while, probably in the 60s, and then he went to Jordan. He was on a bus, and there was a woman in the full, you know, all covered up. you know, nothing but her eyes showing and her breasts hanging out. Because she fed her baby and she forgot to put it away. Nothing sexual at all about it in this very, you know, covered up culture. Isn't that interesting? So our, you know, sort of fixation in this culture on breasts as sort of a sexual fetish thing looks very strange coming from other point of view. And I imagine we could get over it. We did at the farm, everybody breastfed. We had to, because we had no electricity, we had no running water, we had no refrigerators. Well, you know, babies would not have made it if we had breastfed. And then I didn't know there was such a thing as breastfeeding problems. Now talk about innocence. But it was innocence in a good way. It just so happened that I never heard of breastfeeding problems. I think I saw breastfeeding for the first time. Unless I was breastfed, I may have been, I don't know. And my mom died before I could ask her. But I remember being a paper girl and knocking on this door. I must have been 10 or 11. And these folks usually let me in when I was collecting my money. And I heard the male or female. They said, oh, it's just the paper girl. Okay, let her in. I thought, what is going on in there? And I saw we had a new mom breastfeeding her baby. It was the first time I'd seen it. And I still knew that breasts were about breastfeeding. And then when I had my baby at 26, and they separated me from her for the first day, but when they brought her to me, I had a roommate that was breastfeeding. I just did what she did, and my baby went for it. And so, even though we had that long separation, there were no problems. And I had, you know, the unchallenging kind of small breasts that are easy to deal with, no getting used to other kinds of things. So that led me to believe that that would be true for everybody. You know, it's kind of how we think when we have our own private experience, and then we think that must be how it is for everybody. And interestingly enough, in the first birth, that's the way it was. Second birth, that's the way it was. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It just went on like that. Well, what could we do? We were having babies in school buses. There was no place to take them to. So we never had any reason to separate mom and baby. And guess what? It just baby after baby after baby after baby. I didn't know there was such a thing as a bad life. Because baby generally will get it right. If you don't disturb them, if you don't, you know, do like what my aunt was afraid I would do with that little bulldog puppy. So that's why I tell people, late cord clamping. And this is for the dads. That's the time for the booming male voice. Our religion tells us that we have to have late cord clamping. We don't clamp the cord until the placenta's out. You know, you hear a male voice for the first time in the maternity unit saying, we don't let the cord be clamped. It's a religious principle. Because now you've got religion inside. That's okay. You can make up a religion about it. With religious freedom. And also, there's very, very good evidence that this is a good and safe thing. You can't take the baby away conveniently when the placenta is still attached. So it ties the mom and the baby, which is exactly what you want. And it tends to keep the baby and the mom belly to belly, which is the right way. So you see all these pictures of babies on their backs. That's not right. You want the baby just born to be on his belly to belly with mom, and then cough and sputter and clear their own airways very nicely because the gravity helps. Here's something for new parents. Don't plan to have a party when you're a new parent. Nobody should come to your home until you're just starving to see people. You know, that's what Facebook's for. Put pictures up there. Let people come over, drop food, and don't have to entertain them. You shouldn't be host and hostess. You need to sleep. Your moms need to sit on the bed for days. and just do nothing but just keep all that good feeling energy in the bank, so to speak. And not go out to a restaurant, not to show the baby off, not to hand the baby off, and then this one and that one, and kiss them and hold them. No, no, no. Stay home. Because I think a lot of people go, oh, let's just show off how together we are. And then they don't know why they feel so bad the next day and why they're bleeding more. Anybody have that experience? Yeah. So, no matter how good you feel, don't want to just spit it all over the place. That's supposed to go to the baby and keep you feeling right. So that's a good thing to spread the word, because I think people aren't prepared for the postpartum period and how easy it is to sort of blow that energy and then feel depressed and down afterward and be in the darkness and why. Yeah.
When I had my third baby a year ago, I had just finished nursing school, and he was born on the day of the final. I had taken it 2 days before. But the nursing ceremony the pinning ceremony, which I'd been looking forward to for 2 years, was on that Friday. So he was 4 days old, and I was insistent on going. So I went, my husband, my other 2 children, my in-laws, my nursing class, sat through the whole ceremony, really hot, draining milk, and when it was over, I nursed them, and then went outside and broke down in absolute tears. I was like, why am I here? This is the worst day of my life. So I had to be there, but I really should have stayed home. That's kind of what I
Thank you. What else do we have? Did anybody sing in labor? Any of you tried that form of music? You did? You want to tell us a little bit?
I just felt comfortable. I don't know.
You just sang?
It came really naturally. I'm a musician.
Okay.
Trade. That's kind of my roots.
Sure.
So it just
Just seemed like the thing to do.
I didn't even think about it, actually. It was low toning, really, but
Yeah.
with my first, that's how I got
That's it.
into labor.
We had a couple of opera singers. They both sang. And you can't go wrong if you're singing with full voice. All that energy is just going to flow very smoothly. You're going to do the right kind of breathing. There's a doctor who, she's a British obstetrician, born in Sri Lanka. Her name is Amali Lokukamage. And her book is called The Heart in the Womb. I forget who the publisher, I think she's self-published. But she told me she married late. She got married at maybe 42. And then for her honeymoon, she went and did some relief work. Worked very hard in intense heat. Came back and was sort of very fatigued. Thought she was going into early menopause. Began having fertility worries about was she ever going to get to conceive. But interestingly, she's also an acupuncturist, a homeopath, a research scientist, and so she kind of went toward Chinese medicine rather than doing what she learned as an obstetrician. And there she was pregnant. Now she had just about every complication that is known, starting with hyperemesis, gravidarum, constant throwing up, inability to hold anything in. And she didn't, again, go to Western medicine. She went to just different alternative therapies and solved the problem. And then she had, what was next? She got to where she couldn't work as a consultant obstetrician. She had somehow a frozen shoulder. So that was good. She started to interpret this as my baby does not like hospitals. And so she had all this way of the baby going, take more of your attention than you could imagine. Then she had So now she was staying home. She said the farthest thought from her mind would have been ever to have birth. Next thing she had was pubic symphysis dysfunction. She got to where she could barely walk. She had so much pain in the joint just in front of her pubis was like not letting her walk without pain. But interestingly enough, she could do Sri Lankan dance and samba. Figure that out. Sri Lankan dance is really quite intricate, and it's a moving pelvis without pain. Well, she ended up going to yoga and all of this stuff, and then she went, okay, I want a home birth with a midwife. And she had one. Then as she realized that there's something we call pregnancy brain. And do you know that woman, Jill, I think her name is Jill Bolt Taylor, something like this, and she was a neuroscientist who had a stroke. She's out there, I'm not sure if I got her name right, but she had a stroke, it didn't involve headache, it involved ecstasy. At the same time, there was enough of her still in the left brain analytical side that she realized that she was in danger of dying unless she could get help. Then she had a very hard time thinking linearly enough that she could remember a phone number of a friend. But she did finally pull it together enough that she could do that. And her talk and her book are quite interesting. Well, Amali Okukamagi said that's what she was experiencing, because she was this left brain analytical person. And then all the time while she was pregnant and nursing, she was now enjoying right brain stuff, but remembering was like, forget it. So that's why she calls her book The Heart and the Womb. And it's very interesting to have a scientific look at what happens in pregnancy, breastfeeding, and birth. More questions?
We'll all talk to her.
I hope we handled the fear thing okay. Precipitous labor? How to slow down? Oh, I know how. Get upside down. Upside down in labor, so you're working against gravity. Now this takes practice. If you've done any yoga, and you know the plow, you go up and then you're in a shoulder stand and then your feet go over the ground above your head. Now, if you go to YouTube and you type in chimp birth, Attica, A-T-T-I-C-A, Attica Zoo, you'll see a chimp doing this. Chimps are very agile, very flexible, they don't need yoga classes. We might. But she actually labors. She's crowning her baby in a plow, only her plow is she's really just jacking. She's able to put her feet flat on the floor. And then you look at this tiny head coming out and you're going, what am I seeing? And then you go, that's not her head, that's the baby. Okay. And then when she's ready to deliver, then she goes into leaning against the wall and out comes the delivery. She actually then goes forward and the baby falls. But when people look at it, they're trying to figure out how in the world, why did she choose that? I thought it has to be because she wanted to slow it down. Because it can come so fast, it's scary, right? Well, gravity. So, and then you had a tear because it was too fast. So that's why I'm telling people, look at that chimp. Now what she's doing is she's sort of petting herself. She's got her thumb on her clitoris, and then she'll massage a little bit, and then she'll play with the baby's hair. pull on it. I do stuff like that. I never say push to the mom, or almost never, right? Because I think it's irritating to catch orders from somebody when your body is like doing it. You should get praised. Or at least, people, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything. So it can be a time for silence. Or it can be a time for feedback. Oh, well, you got half your head there or something, if she can't see it. But that's my recommendation, upside down. Now, maybe somebody's going to make a birth bed. If they make birth beds right, they would be double, queen size at least. Okay. Because, it's good to make dads there. Let's get them comfortable. Let them be together. And let's have room to turn over. Because it's easier to get babies out when mom's pelvic measurements are widest. And we actually have a bigger pelvis from front to back when we're on all fours than we do when we're like this, where we're crunching it together. So why wouldn't we want to do that? And then, while you're at it, well, you could make that bed tip, I suppose, or have something like I have an inversion system, where you can catch your feet in the thing, and then you can go upside down. That would work too. Anyway, just a few ideas. If we were thinking about all the possible situations that can happen for it, because some of us are going way slow, some of us are going too fast. Well, welcome to birth, that's how it is. I've had women that have had a 5-minute labor. I have a next door neighbor that had a 20-minute labor with her first. And then you have a woman who takes a week to do the same thing. And the one with the 5 or 20-minute labor might have had a bigger baby. It's that way. It's birth. There's a very wide range of normal, and our society teaches us that there's hardly anything's normal, right? They've got it down to where hardly anybody would be qualified to have unmedicated birth at home. When in fact, in a healthy population, almost everybody could, if we just weren't scared and witless. Yes?
Hi. I, first of all, have to say it's amazing to be in your presence and such an inspiration to me. And my question is, I'm here with my 12-year-old daughter, and I'm wondering what advice you would have for young girls, young boys for that matter, on their bodies, on, we're just starting discussions about babies and whatnot.
There's a couple of good things to see on YouTube. There's one is called, you go to YouTube, and then you'll have to sign in for her because you have to be 18 to watch an elephant give birth. But the elephant, it's called The Dramatic Struggle for Life. And it's just well worth looking at because it's an Asian elephant. She's in captivity, and they video the whole labor. And she's just so calm, and she does a little, this. She's just kind of swaying like that, or she trunks here doing that. And she'll flap her ears every now and then. Her tail feels the water bag start to come out. And then she kind of hunkers down and she has a baby. The baby doesn't breathe, and so she has to get the baby breathing. So it's really fascinating to watch it. And it has a very happy ending. And the baby is so adorable, so cute. So that's a good one. And then the chimp birth at a good zoo is also great to watch. And that one's good because people say, oh, the daddy is just so sweet. And I said, did you look at the rear end? I didn't think that looked like a daddy at all. It was Granny. Granny being the doula. And Granny is really very correct. She never touches her dog. Never touches her, never interferes, never nags, scolds, or anything. She's just available. She's there. She gets all kind of full of energy, but she doesn't violate her daughter's space in any way. So that's sweet to watch. But after the baby's born, it's really fascinating because mama used to start going, lick, 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 lick. Elephants can't lick, by the way. They caress with the trunk. They're not lickers, but chimps and orangutans are lickers. Now, they'll put the whole baby's head in the mouth or do a tongue kiss, right? They get really licky. And then I started having a question. I thought, I've heard so many women say, oh, my baby, you smell so delicious. Just good enough to eat. And I go, maybe we're lickers, but we're just ashamed to admit it. And somebody said, you should shut up about that. You're going too far. And I thought, well, that usually means that I haven't talked about it enough. And then the secret lickers started telling me about it. Yeah? But they were afraid to tell everybody. You'd be amazed. Now, part of what started this off was, it actually was a father who, I heard his story. And the story went like this. His wife had had a C-section and she felt such a failure. She was in there shaking like mad. And in the recovery room, and now the baby, mom was feeling so just distressed that the baby couldn't be calm enough. And the baby was crying a lot. And Dad just said, no, how about I hold the baby? And was glad that he was there, and he did it. And then he thought of his nanny goat. And then he started licking his daughter's head. And she calmed immediately. Well, think about it. Have you ever seen a little newborn anything being licked? Don't they look happy? Isn't it calming? I mean, they're never going, Mom, stop licking me. I mean, a 7-year-old would go, Mom, stop licking me. But not when they're 7 minutes old. They love it. So the dad, he licked his daughter, she calmed, and then he brought her right over and put her right on the breast, and she took it. And all was well. See? So licking is calming. It feels good. It feels good. But it is a little moist. Yeah. Bathing, we're not bathing the baby. Actually, very, very connected. I tell women, sometimes as soon as they've had the baby, they want to go have a shower. I say, no. When she heard of the birth, she came over from a different neighborhood to help. And she said, well, what if I bathe the baby? And the mom, without thinking about it, said, well, okay. And then she brought the baby back, and she didn't have the smell anymore, and she felt grief-stricken about it. A real sense of loss. And yet she didn't want to scold her sister because she knew that it had been done with the best of intentions. But here she was remembering it as a loss 25 years later. That's how deep that stuff is. So I just recommend, do not bathe babies. Wait a day or two. I mean, what are they doing that would be dirty? Nothing. And they came out of the cleanest place in the world. So I'm just a big one on, postpone that shower. Let the smell be the smell. And don't, use smoke, soaps and stuff like that when you do bathe. Yeah.
I'm asking this question actually, so now I'm taking it. Am I taking it? Yes, ma'am. My daughter who's in Boston, where tonight they're actually showing your documentary, so we're both reporting to each other. She has a 5-month-old that was born in a freestanding birthing center in Boston, and it was lovely, and everything went wonderfully until day 2. Day 2, visiting nurse came and said, your baby's jaundiced. Baby ended up spending 4 days in the hospital, IVs, under lights, blindfolded, and mom feeling like she had done something terribly wrong. So I was wondering if you could talk about A, preventing something like that, and B, how to deal with it other than the way the medical establishment insists.
Okay, this is about jaundice on day 2. Day 2 is a little early for physiological jaundice. Usually that will come up on day 3, days 3, 4, 5. So I guess that was probably why they went with this conservative and putting the baby under the bilirubin lights, and of course they have to protect the baby's eyes against it, and then you have that separation. What season was it? Winter?
Spring.
It was spring, okay.
Spring, yeah.
How high did the bilirubin counts get, do you know?
It was about
20 something.
yeah,
28, that's on the high side. I don't think
Right.
that they were probably wrong in doing what they did.
Maybe it was like 21, 22, but it was
Okay,
still
21, 22, that's high on day 2.
Yeah.
So I think that they must have worried about a blood incompatibility, because you haven't mentioned blood transfusion or anything. So
She was very dehydrated, you could see.
maybe it was dehydrated.
Yeah.
But now maybe your daughter didn't drink in labor?
Maybe, I was
Ah.
there, I don't remember her.
Okay, so that might have been a factor.
Right.
That's, I think you probably put your finger on what it was. I took care of a woman who just did everything right in pregnancy, and then she was 37, 38 years old. She wanted to have a water birth. Well, she thought, I guess she thought that meant she shouldn't have to drink. And I kept urging her to drink some water, and she just got real stubborn about it. And I don't know why. Did she think she could absorb water through her skin? It doesn't work like that. She ended up with a C-section. The doctor said he had never seen a baby so dehydrated. And she just, I don't know, was she afraid she'd pee in the water? I mean, that would have been
She
fine.
just may not have thought about it, and it wasn't a very long labor without, she was only at the birthing center for a couple of hours. So, but I could, by day 2, you could see the baby's, everything was dry, her lips were dry.
Baby's lips were dry and everything.
Yeah, and she also was not, I mean, so my concern was that maybe she needed to be given some kind of water aside from just the nursing. But that doesn't sound like it's necessarily.
Well, you know, depends on how much that baby's water deficit was, because the mom on day 2 is not going to get a considerable amount of liquid into the baby. The colostrum comes out a few drops, so way to be pleasant and obedient. Just kind of pretend you're a chimp. You know, a chimp, if they don't like you, they'll throw poop at you. Attitude. It's all about attitude. You're paying for it, right? You're paying for it one way or another. So, you know, get rid of clocks, and smooch. Oh, that works. The partners with you smooching drives out the people that aren't helpful. They'll just go away. They'll send somebody who's more tolerant to be with you. That works really well. Real passionate. Undecided about what placenta is? What to do with it? Oh, well, I don't know. I don't have a lot of opinions, so if you don't care, I'm not going to try to talk you into it. Oh, all of that. Any of the above. I just say, you know, go on the internet and read up and see what suits you. That's probably what I would say. But yeah, I'm sure it's got something going on for it. That's good. And I never ate my own, but I don't find that foul or disgusting or anything like it. Encapsulation, I hear nothing but good about it from people who've done it. So, fine with me. Yeah?
What are your thoughts about induction?
My thoughts about induction is way too much of it. The national induction rate, as far as I'm concerned, ought to be no higher than 10%. And it makes sense in some cases, right? Let's say sometimes it happens that a baby dies and mom doesn't, her cervix is ready, she's not ripened up, she's not ready to go in labor. The conservative way to handle that very sad situation is to wait until the body's ready to go in labor. So she's going around, the baby's dead inside of her, she's having grief, she's still pregnant in that sense, and she's still got to face labor. The safest thing to do is wait a while, hard as it is, to wait until the body's ready. Because if you go ahead and induce right away, she's going to have a horrendous time of it. And it gives her time to process those emotions. And I think she gets through it in that way, in a way where she has less of a prolonged time of grief or an unresolved time of grief. It's important to have the saying goodbye happen at the body's pace, not at society's pace.
So what would your suggestion be for a mom who's facing a suggested induction by her provider?
Find another doctor. I don't know, this is a hard one. This was so hard because we didn't used to have a race to the finish line like your generation's having. I mean, it just seems so unfair that they could go, okay, all right, generation, whatever they call you, you got to get your babies done faster than people did in time previous. That's what's happening. They just redefined how long pregnancy should be. And the science on it was not worth a pile of plutonium. It really wasn't. What do you gain? Well, now that you're doing all this induction, you're putting moms and babies, a certain number of moms and babies, in danger from uterine hyperstimulation is what's happening. Or you're filling the nurseries with babies where they go, whoops, that one was a misestimated due date. Due date is a terrible thing. It used to be called a due month. And it also used to be called an estimated. That's a guess. So the so-called science of, when women need to give birth is just a bunch of interference that has caused a lot of problems. And a lot of babies end up in the NICU that weren't done yet. They weren't ready to get kicked out of the uterus. And you really have hardly any deaths from post-dates pregnancy. It's just really, really small. And when you're inducing, then you're getting more painful labor, you're getting these unnatural contractions, and so much interference. So what do? Well, push for more home birth. Because, we know in our practice, we didn't used to have to go, the worst thing in the world would be a 43-week pregnancy. We know lots of Amish families where mother, grandmother, all the women in that family had 43-week pregnancies. They didn't have 40-week pregnancies. Hardly anybody was ready at 39 weeks, really. We see very few 39-week pregnancies. And did you ever notice puberty? That our kids, male or female, mature at different rates? Do all the guys get a beard and mustache at the same time? No. Some of them are already getting the hairy lip when they're 11, and some of them that doesn't happen until they're 17. Same goes for onset of pregnancy. Some, 8-year-olds. And then there are others who are 14. Why do we think that every baby would require exactly the same number of days of gestation? This to me just does not make sense. And a lot of times I've heard doctors say, well, waited, and then we finally went ahead and induced, we ended up with a C-section or whatever at 42 weeks, and the baby looks like it's 38 weeks. Yeah. So, how do you fight that? That's kind of a hard one. You're best off with a home birth midwife. But that's tough. So what can you do? Okay, here's what you can do. During pregnancy, it's really good to squat quite often. So if you're not already doing 300 squats per day, we'll start working up to it. You can start off at 10, and then, get up to 20, and keep going until you get to 300. You're probably not going to go very close dates. If you're doing 300 squats a day, you're also probably going to have a fairly quick labor because you're well prepared. That's what women used to do, that hard work. And so you're more sedentary in generation than half